I just want to give all the honor and the glory to Jesus this morning, because without him there's no me. Because I witnessed a miracle this morning. I saw a miracle just this morning. I took a look in the mirror, and that's when I saw the miracle. Because by all accounts, I should be dead in the penitentiary for life or locked up in an insane asylum. But God, so rich in love and mercy, spared me and saved my life for this day. And so my testimony started at the age of 13 when I made a gang of bad choices. But the first bad choice that I made was to reject the gospel of God, was to reject the fact that Christ died for my sins. I grew up in a Christian home, both of my parents. I was the only person in my hood really that I knew had both of their parents. And I still decided they didn't have enough knowledge and wisdom to raise me, and I was going to raise myself. And so after rejecting God, I realized that I opened up a door in my heart that would take years to close. And it was a door of addiction, darkness, desolation, emptiness, loneliness, heartache, pain, rejection, hurt, illness, sorrow, misery, mayhem, madness. That's the door that I opened up when I decided that I wasn't going to follow Christ. And at the age of 13, that's when I had my first drink. At the age of 13, that's when I smoked my first cigarette. So really, cigarettes was the first, tobacco was the first drug that I ever tried. And that's the one that opened the door for me. I decided my parents didn't have enough money to fulfill my needs. So at the age of 14, I started selling crack cocaine, hustling on the streets, trying to make a fast dollar. I went all the way through high school as a functioning alcoholic, even graduated with advanced honors, but still had no direction, no purpose, no future, because I didn't have Christ. So in 93, that's when I graduated. I decided, you know what, I'm going to lay back for a year, and then I'll go off to college, and I'll get away from the hood. I'm from the east side of Fort Worth in Poly. That's where I was raised. So if you know anything about that neighborhood during that time, you know what I'm talking about. And by the summer of 93, I had already caught a dope case. I was selling dope full-time out of my house. I turned my house into a neighborhood hangout where all the gang members came and just hung out. I wasn't an active gang member myself at the time, but I dressed like them, I talked like them, I walked like them. I hadn't been put down with the set yet. And I remember one day walking to the store on 8th Street, walking up to Bill Size. I was going to get a 40 ounce. And I had on my Cowboys hat, of course, and I had on my blue Dickies. And I remember a car pulled up beside me, and the guy had a red bandana on his face. And he said, "What's up, blood?" And I said, "No, I don't bang, man. I'm not a banger." And he said, "Okay." And he reached over in his seat, and he pulled out a .45 caliber. And I didn't have a weapon on me at the time, so I fled. I bounced. But my parents were sagging, and so as I began to try to run, I actually fell down onto the ground. I made it like 20, 30 feet. And the guy got out of the car, and he was about to walk up on me, and he stopped. And he just looked at me, and I just looked at him. And he kind of gave me a look like, "I had you. I could have got you." For some reason, he stopped, and he got back in his car, and he left. I didn't understand it at the time, but that was God's angels protecting me. I remember thinking right there at that moment that I either got to get all in or I got to get all the way out. And I said, ain't no way I'm going to let them punk me out, man. I got to get all the way in. So in 93, I got put down with the set Hollywood Crips, and I started full-time banging, full-time slanging. And that just led to more heartache, more sorrow, more bad news. I ended up catching 4 dope cases. I ended up going to jail at least one time each year from 93 to 2004 for some reason or another. In 2001, I went to state jail. I got caught at a dope house with some dope on me. I ended up doing 6 months state jail in Jacksboro. And that's when I decided there that I was going to play the game. God, you get me out of this one, man. I promise. You know, I'm going to change. I'm going to do the right thing after this. And God lived up to his end of the bargain, but God was going to make sure that I lived up to my end of the bargain too. After I got out, before that in 97, that's when I first tried heroin. And that's when I first tried cocaine, starting cocaine. And I loved it. And that's why I said I ended up opening up that door to addiction. And I realized that it was a hole. They said that when a person has a murmur, they're born with a hole in their heart. And I realized that I was born with a spiritual murmur. That I had a hole in my heart that acted like a black hole, a vacuum that would suck anything inside of it to try to fulfill itself, to satisfy itself, to satiate itself. And I realized the more that I tried to put into that hole that wasn't Christ, the more empty I felt. The more lonely I felt, the more depressed, the more anguish, the more... I remember just feeling at times, man, like, I don't even want to live. If I got to live like this, I'd rather just die. But I was too scared to pull the trigger myself. I wanted to. I was on the verge of it, but I couldn't do it. And in 2001, I got out of state jail. I went back. First day I got out, I went and got a 50 Hennessy and a pack of Newports, and I was right back on the grind again. But this time it got even worse because I stopped snorting heroin, but I started shooting it into my veins. So the story got even worse. This was a new chapter that I was opening up in my life. And truth be told, man, I've tried all kind of drugs: acid, Xanax, Seroquel, popping pills, Valium, Vicodin, Somas, crack, crystal meth, speed, primos, you name it, I tried it. Just to try to satisfy that void inside of my heart. And I was so empty, so lonely, so lost. Just remember feeling no hope. The feeling of being a prisoner. A prisoner of something that I trapped myself into. The something that was so pleasurable at the time, now I was a prisoner of that pleasure. And that was the hardest part for me to cope with, is that this was a trap that I laid for myself. And I just remember, man, robbing every day, stealing, hustling, stealing DVDs, whatever I could do to get money, man. And as I was pulling up to the park, I used to go to the parks and just shoot up. And I would see people like walking their dogs and families playing there. And I'm over here getting high. And I just remember thinking to myself, man, why can't I just have a normal life? Why can't I just be a normal person like that? Man, I want that. That's all I want, is just to have a normal life. Even though I had that opportunity at the age of 13 to have that normal life. But now I wanted that. And I just remember telling God, man, it's got to be more than this. It's got to be more. Because at the same time I was shooting dope, I'm thinking of the next lick that I'm going to hit. I'm thinking, how can I get more money to get more dope as I'm doing dope? And that was the only reason I used to wake up some days, just so I could get high. And truth be told, I couldn't get high until I got out of bed some days. And I just remember just telling a friend of mine, I was like, aren't you tired of this? It's got to be more than this. And I was wrapped up in gang madness. They shot so many of my homeboys. They shot at me. One of my biggest rivals was a guy that I actually grew up with, and me and him turned into bitter rivals. I used to make gangster rap songs about him killing his family, his mother, guys in his set, in his hood. Songs got kind of popular. He heard about them, so me and him, we had shootouts all of the time. And one night they followed us and they tracked us back to where we were hanging out at, and they shot up my car, they shot up my house. And I just remember opening up my heart and just filling my heart with hatred and rage and venom towards him. And that's an important part of this story, because later on he's going to come back into the picture. But I hated this guy with a passion. I hated him. And I just remember telling my friend that I wanted to change. And I was going to do whatever it is that I had to do to change. I tried NA, AA, rehab, detox. None of that stuff worked for me. None of that stuff worked for me. And in 2004, I told a friend of mine, I was like, look, today is the day. She told me about a ministry on the north side that specialized in working with drug addicts, specialized in working with the dregs of society, the gang member, the prostitute, the homeless, the person that society has downtrodden and walked on and forgotten about and cast off. The people that the state is building penitentiaries for, this ministry looked out for them. And I remember I went there on April Fool's Day, 2004. And I said, I'm going to change today. I'm going to do whatever it is I got to do. And I went to the house, and I remember looking through the window and seeing my biggest gang rival. He was in there preaching a message. And I remember thinking to myself, man, I want to go in here, but I can't go in there if he in here. I want to kill this dude. And at the same time, I was getting out of my car. I was like, man, I can't go in here. But something was pushing me and compelling me and prodding me and moving me toward the door. And by the time I got to the front door, he was already at the front door. And he looked me eye to eye and he said, what's up, Menace? And I said, what's up, man? And he said, man, look, I want you to forgive me. I said, I can't do that, man. I'm not even here for that. I'm just trying to get help. I ain't got nothing to say to you. He said, no, man, from the bottom of my heart, sincerely, I genuinely want to ask you to forgive me. And it was strange to me because in the hood, we talk three things. You don't ask for forgiveness, you don't give forgiveness, and you don't receive it. So for him to ask me for forgiveness, this blew my mind on the spot. And I kept saying, no, I can't do that. I can't do that. I can't do that. But at the same time I was telling him I can't do that, I was reaching my hand out for his hand. And I remember when I shook his hand, he pulled me to him and he embraced me. And he said, forgive me, man. And that's when my heart broke. That's when all of the hurt and the pain and the bitterness and the rage and the darkness inside of me flooded out of my eyes. And that's when I remember thinking at that moment, you will never be the same after this. That's when a voice spoke to me and said, you will never be the same after this moment right here. And I knew that was the presence of God. I knew that was the Holy Spirit speaking to me. And I knew right then that he had shown me the love of Christ. He was showing me the love of Jesus Christ because he said, the only way that I can forgive you is because Christ has forgiven me. And the only way that I would be able to face my guilt is through Christ. The only way that I can face my shame is through Christ. There's no way that I would be able to face up to my past because of all the stuff that I did if it wasn't because of what I learned about Jesus dying on the cross for my sins. There's no way that I can face it. They told me that Adam and Eve knew that they were naked and they became shamed. But they told me that Jesus was crucified naked to cover that shame. And when I learned about that, it gave me the hope that I needed to face my past and conquer it. And now it's been 8 years for me. It's been 8 years that Christ has delivered me, that Jesus has set me free, that God has given me a new life, that God has given me hope, given me a future. I was dead. I was cast off. I was written off. No hope, man. And Christ has resurrected me, lifted me, breathed into me, given me a new life. And I'm forever indebted to Christ. And I vow to repay him with the very air that I breathe, with everything that I do. And the same, I realized, man, that drugs wasn't my problem, gangs wasn't my problem, violence wasn't my problem, sin was my problem. And I was filling my heart with sin, but Christ crucified my sin. Jesus set me free from my sin. He says, whoever the Son sets free is free indeed. He said, you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. He says, wherever the Spirit of God is, there is liberty. And Christ broke off my chains and made me a free man. And now I'm a slave to him. And I vow to serve him and slave for him with the very air that I breathe for the rest of my days. And I had a passion for my addiction. I'm here to let you know, man, that I'm addicted to the rock. I'm addicted to Christ. I'm a Christ addict. I can't live without him. I can't make it one single day without God. I ain't going to even try. I'm not going to even try. And I'm just grateful that he spared me. Because I remember crying out, God, if you're real, take this away. If you're real, God, save me. If you're real, change my life. Show me that you're real. If you are who they say you are, then change me. Make me a better me. And what you're seeing is a residue of what he put on my life. The fingerprints of God. For him touching my life. All of him and none of me. I give him all the glory and the honor. Because I was a dead man walking. Set up for hell. Set up for hell. The devil took my life. But Jesus said, those that you are giving me, God, none of them can be snatched away. And God snatched me back from the enemy. God redeemed me, pulled me out of hell, snatched me from the flames, and given me a new life, man. So I'm just forever indebted and I'm grateful. I don't know who this is speaking to. I don't know who this is going to help. But I pray that if you're in that situation or know somebody in that situation, I have resources. I know people who can deal with them, mentor them, help them. But really, truly, in all actuality, we all addicts. Because we created the worship. And if we're not worshiping Christ, we're going to worship something. Mainly ourselves. Which is the biggest issue. Idols. And so I just want to encourage everybody with the earshot of my voice, man, to worship Christ. Seek Christ. Love the Lord with all of your heart, all of your mind, all of your soul, with every ounce of your being. He says, in him we live and move and have our being. But I wasn't a man pursuing God. I was a man portraying God. God cast me down and showed me. You're not the creator, you're the creation. So I bow before him, man. I give him all the honor and the glory. I just want to thank y'all for allowing me to share that this morning. God bless you.